One common question I get is, should I learn how to improvise using music theory, or should I do it mainly by learning stuff by ear, jazz solos, licks, all this sorts of stuff? Well, in today's video, I'm going to go over some pros and cons of each approach and help answer that question coming right up. What's up, Brent here from LearnJazzStandards.com, which is a blog, a podcast, and videos all geared towards helping you become a better jazz musician. Make sure you subscribe at the button below and hit the bell notification button if you have never done so already. So let's just get straight to the point, go straight to the answer. Should you be learning how to improvise with jazz with music theory, or should you do it by ear? The answer is both. I say both because there's benefits for working on each, and they really can support each other if you're working on them at the same time. But I know that's a cop-out answer, and so at the end of the video, I'm going to answer, for me, if I could only choose one to work on for the rest of my life, which one would it be? But until then, what I want you to answer in the comments below and be thinking about for yourself is, if you could only choose music theory or learning by ear, which one would you choose to become a better jazz improviser? Leave that in the comments below. But let's go over some pros and some cons of each one. Starting with music theory, what are some pros of working on it? Pro number one is it helps you understand what you are actually playing. So let's just say you learned a jazz solo or a jazz standard. It can be really helpful, of course, to understand what those chord progressions are, how they relate to each other, how the chords connect with one another. You know, what Sonny Rollins was doing when he outlined that dominant seventh chord. Was he hitting the altered notes? What was happening there that made it sound so great? Music theory can be a fantastic tool, especially alongside of learning things by ear, because it can really help you understand what you're doing, which will in turn will help you make better decisions when you're improvising, which will help you know what to practice in the practice room. Pro number two is it can really help you conceptualize jazz language. Now, in the right hands, scales can be used to help you get ideas or see things from a different angle. For example, melodic minor application, or what do I play over a half diminished chord? Well, you can play the Locrian mode or the Locrian sharp 2. And when you have that context to kind of help you out, that can help you note map those chords out and sort of learn some different things that you can do. Or the altered scale over a dominant seventh chord, just by learning that little tool, can help you conceptualize some sounds that are happening. Now let's move to the cons, because there's definitely some cons if you're just doing it by itself. Con number one is it's not really optimal for learning jazz language. So when you go to listen to your favorite jazz musicians play live or on a record and you hear how great they sound, this wasn't the result of them just studying a bunch of music theory and putting it to action. It was the result of them listening to lots of jazz music, the result of them really hearing and understanding that language, which really ultimately comes from copying and mimicking the great jazz musicians that came before them. So music theory by itself isn't going to do the trick. Con number two is it can sound calculated if you're using it in your jazz improv. And the best example of that is scales, right? If you're just playing scales over chords or chord progressions, it can sound calculated. It can sound like you're playing scales instead of actual musical ideas. So if you're not thinking about scales in the right way and applying them in the right way, it can kind of come across as dry and lifeless when you're playing. Let's move on to learning to improvise by ear. Pro number one is it's going to help you learn jazz language. Like, that's really how you learn the language. That's really how you learn any language, is by listening to it and then copying it and mimicking it. So if you're learning solos by ear, if you're learning licks by ear, you're guaranteed to start learning the jazz language and be able to have that come out in your solos. Pro number two is it's going to help you improve your ears. And at the end of the day, our ears are the most valuable asset we have as improvisers. We want to be building them and growing them because we have to respond in the moment. Things are going to happen that we don't expect. We're going to be making musical ideas, and we have to build off of those ideas. So for developing our ear, it's going to really help us as improvisers and help us start to play those ideas. When you hear musicians just play amazing musical ideas one after another, obviously when they're improvising, they didn't just plan that all ahead of time. It came to them as they were playing, and a large part of that is because their ears are latching onto ideas. All right, that's enough of that. Now let me answer what I would choose if I could only pick one for the rest of my life. Which one would I choose to learn jazz? And it would be hands down my ear. I would be using my ear to learn solos, to learn licks, to learn jazz standards. I'd way rather be doing that, and I would find that way more beneficial than working on theory for the rest of my life. So definitely, I think the ear is the most important one, but again, I think you should be working on both, and they both can aid each other. So like I said at the beginning of the video, leave down in the comments what your opinions are. Which one would you choose if you could only pick one for the rest of your life to work on? And also tell me why. And hey, I always invite people into this, so if you haven't joined this already, feel free to sign up for my free mini course, Accelerate Your Jazz Skills. It really helps with a lot of things and solidifies my method for learning jazz improvisation by ear and also combining it with music theory. All right, that's all for today's video. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for listening. Make sure you hit that like button, make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.